dear students, welcome to my
Would you
class.
like to go to a seashore? What are the things you saw there? Let's think about an ocean. What is the basic factor of an ocean? It contains water. Then think about the movement of ocean water. Those of you who have spent some time in the seashore have probably noticed that the water level in the sea will not stay as the same throughout the day. Waves in the sea continuously washes the seashore, and the actual water level of the sea changes as the day passes.
Today, we are going to learn an interesting area, tides. To understand the concepts of tides, let's watch carefully the video and try to understand what is about.
The second type of movement that occurs in oceans is called a tide. The alternate rise and fall of the ocean waters twice in 24 hours is known as a tide. When the water rises to its highest level, covering much of the shore, it is said to be at a high tide, while when the water falls to its lowest level, it is said to be at a low tide. Tides are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and, to some extent, the pull of the sun on the Earth's surface. The moon exerts gravitational pull on the Earth as it orbits around it, and this has a great effect on the ocean waters because water is liquid and can freely move about. The moon's attraction causes the water from other regions to pile up on the side nearest the moon, which is known as an ordinary high tide. At the same time, a counter bulge occurs on the opposite side of the Earth, which also results in a high tide on the other end. This high tide is to be found in the centrifugal force, which develops to counter the centripetal force of the Earth's rotation. Between these two areas of high tides are areas of lower tides, since the moon's pull draws water from these parts. The high tide begins at moonrise and reaches the maximum level when the moon reaches the highest point in the sky. As the moon starts its westward journey, the low tide begins and it reaches its maximum level when the moon sets. This periodic rise of tide water for about 6 hours, followed by a fall in the water for about 6 hours, constitutes the cycle of tides. One high tide and one low tide are completed in 12 hours and 25 minutes, which means the high tide and the low tide are observed twice a day. The moon rises about 3/4 of an hour later every day, and therefore the high tide on one day occurs about 45 to 50 minutes later than the corresponding tide on the previous day. The moon revolves in its orbit around the Earth with an angular velocity of approximately 12.2 degrees per day. in the same direction in which the Earth is rotating on its axis with an angular velocity of 360 degrees per day. Therefore, on each day, a point on the rotating Earth must complete a rotation of 360 degrees plus 12.2 degrees in order to catch up with the Moon. Since 15 degrees is equal to 1 hour of time, this extra amount of rotation equals to 12.2 degrees each day, which would require a period of time equal to 12 degrees upon 15 degrees into 60 minutes per hour, or 48.8 minutes. On an average, it requires about 50 minutes longer each day for a sublunar point on the rotating Earth to regain this position directly along the major axis of the Moon's tidal force envelope, where the tide-raising influence is at its maximum. In consequence, the recurrence of a tide of the same phase and a similar rise would take place at an interval of 24 hours and 50 minutes after the preceding occurrence. The average difference in the water level between high and low tides at any place is called the amplitude or the range of the tide. The range of the tides at any location is subject to certain variable factors. The first factor is the position of the Moon and the Sun. When the Earth, Moon and the Sun are practically in the same straight line, the combined gravitational pull of the Sun and Moon causes the higher than normal high tides called spring tides. Spring tides occur on full moon and new moon days, which means that these tides occur twice a month. During the spring tide, all the water on the Earth's surface is pulled towards the Moon on the near side and pushed away on the far side, which results in tidal bulges at its nearest and the farthest point. When the Moon is in its first and last quarter, the Sun, the Moon and the Earth are at right angles, and thus the gravitational pull of the Sun and the Moon counteracts each other's effect. Because of this, the high tide is lower and the low tide is higher than at other times. These are called neap tides. The second factor on which the range of the tide is dependable is the distance of Earth from the Moon and the Sun. Since the Moon follows an elliptical path, the distance between the Earth and the Moon varies throughout the month by approximately 31,000 miles. Once each month, when the Moon is closest to the Earth, that is, at perigee, the tide generation forces are higher than usual, thus producing above average ranges in the tides. Approximately 2 weeks later, when the Moon is farthest from the Earth, that is, at apogee, the lunar tide-raising force is smaller and the tidal ranges will be less than average. Similarly, when the Earth is closest to the Sun, that is, at perihelion, around January 2nd of each year, the tidal ranges get enhanced. When the Earth is farthest from the Sun, that is, at aphelion, around July 2nd, the tidal ranges reduce. A high spring tide occurs when the moon is in perigee or when the sun is in perihelion.
What are tides? Tides are the periodic rise and fall of water level in the ocean. How the tides are formed? The tides are formed as a result of the gravitational pull exerted by the moon and the sun along with the centrifugal force due to the Earth's rotation. What causes tides? Tides are caused by the interaction of Earth, Moon and the Sun. Gravity is the reason for tides. Gravity is the force exerted by an object that pulls other object towards it. What is high tide and low tide? High tide. Water level on the part of the earth facing the moon rises. The rise in water level due to the gravitational pull exerted by the moon leads to high tide. Low tide. Water level at the opposite side has also risen. The centrifugal force due to the Earth's rotation is the reason for the rise in water level. The water level goes down at places located 19 degrees away from the places of tidal influence. The phenomenon of fall of water level is known as low tide. What is spring tide and neap tide? Spring tide. The sun, moon and earth come in a straight line on full moon and new moon days. The tidal force will be intense due to the combined influence of sun and moon. As a result, the tides formed on these days will be stronger. These are known as spring tides. Neap tide. The moon and the sun will be at an angular distance of 19 degrees from the earth after 7 days from the full moon and new moon day. As the sun and the moon attract the earth from an angular distance of 19 degrees, the tides caused are weak. Such tides are known as neap tides. Let's see the effects of tides. Effects of tides are the debris dumped along the seashore and ports are washed off to deep sea. The formation of deltas is disrupted due to strong tides. The fishermen make use of the tides for going and returning from the sea in catamarans. Brackish water can be collected in salt pans during high tides. Ships can be brought to shallow harbors during high tides. Tidal energy can be used for power generation.
You should always remember that tides play a significant role on our planet. Most of the living organisms in our planet depend on tide for their survival and reproduce. Hence, we must understand the role of tide on our human life also.
Students, now watch a recap of the topic below.
So what is a tide? It is basically rise and fall of the sea level. It occurs once or twice in a day. And the reason behind that is due to the attraction of the sun and the moon. Now I'll explain how tides work. There are many factors that are involved in creating a tide. However, 3 of them are important. They are the sun, the moon and the earth. All these three huge bodies have different gravitational pull, which creates a tide in the ocean. But in general, if you see the study of tides, it is a very complex subject. It's very confusing. Anyhow, as I said, the three major factors involved in creating tide are the moon, the earth, and the sun. And the gravitational pull of all three bodies creates tide. As we know that the earth is quite larger than the moon. That's why the moon orbits around the earth. But then if you see, the earth is smaller than the sun. The sun is enormous. That's why the entire solar system revolves around the sun. That means smaller bodies orbit around the larger one, because the larger body exerts a gravitational pull on the smaller one. I hope so far it's clear. Now imagine this is Earth. The moon is right above it. Both Earth and the moon will exert some gravitational pull. Now we know that everything on Earth is grounded, and it is because of the gravitational pull of the Earth. For example, you and I are standing. If we jump, we will fall back to the same place. If you drop a light feather, it will fall due to the Earth's gravitational pull. Now when it comes to ocean, water is fluid, and fluids move more easily. So when water on Earth in a particular region, if it is directly beneath the moon, then the water gets pulled by the gravitational force towards the moon. And that creates a bulge, meaning a tide on the surface of the ocean. And on the other side of the Earth, there is another bulge in the ocean water. And this happens because this side of the water is farther away from the moon and the centrifugal force that counterbalances gravity on Earth. So there are two tidal bulges that are created on opposite sides of the Earth. One is due to the moon's gravitational force, and the other is due to the centrifugal force of the Earth. If you don't know what is centrifugal force, I'll just tell you quickly. Imagine gravity as a rope that pulls everything to the center of the Earth. And centrifugal force is the outward force that counterbalances the gravity. Anyhow, you just need to remember that there are two tidal bulges on opposite sides of the Earth. And both the side of the Earth where there is bulges, you will find high tide. And on the side that is right angle to the moon, you will have low tide. It is a bit confusing, right? But that's how it is. Now this all happens only when there is moon and the Earth. What about the sun? As I said, the sun is bigger than all the celestial bodies in a solar system. That means the sun will exert more gravitational pull, and it has influences on the tides as well. However, the sun's gravitational pull can do two things. Either it will increase the moon's gravitational pull on Earth, or it will diminish the moon's gravitational pull on Earth. When the Earth, the moon and the sun are in a straight line, the sun is behind the moon. Therefore, it enhances moon's gravitational pull, and that creates much higher tides. They are called spring tide. But when the sun and the moon is at right angle, the sun diminishes the gravitational pull of the moon on Earth, and that creates low tides. They are called neap tides. So this is how tides are formed.
Students, now the time to recall the answers. What are tides? How the tides are formed? What are the causes of tides? What is high tide and low tide? What is spring tide and neap tide? What are the effects of tides? I hope you get clear idea about tides. The rest of the portion we can see in the next class. Have a nice day. Thank you.